Dr. Osborne here with Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. And today, one of our viewers, Alana, writes in with this question. Dr. Osborne, what foods should I avoid and what foods should I eat if I'm trying to prevent diabetes? And are there any forms of exercise or supplementation that you would recommend further for greater degrees of prevention? So kind of a lengthy question, but a great one. Because diabetes, if we look at how prevalent diabetes is, just in the US alone, it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic problem that continues to grow year after year. We've got, half the country's overweight and about 40% of the country is actually obese. So what can we do to prevent diabetes? And the key word is prevention. So foods you can avoid. There's three major trigger foods for diabetes for the vast majority of people. Trigger food number one is processed sugar. And this should come as a no-brainer. This should not be new news to anyone who's listening to this show. But processed sugar drives up insulin resistance, drives up triglycerides, puts pressure on your liver, puts pressure on your adrenal glands, and it really sets the stage for your body to have elevations in blood sugar over time, leading to diabetes. So if you want to really prevent diabetes, you've got to just be honest with yourself, look at food labels, and you've got to cut the sugar out. The processed sugar's got to go. Number two, dairy. A lot of people don't realize that dairy is one of the major triggers for diabetes. Dairy is highly insulinogenic, meaning it causes you to produce a lot of insulin. So if you're using dairy as a staple in your diet, that might be a bad move for you if you're trying to prevent diabetes. Now, dairy, the quality matters too, so it's important that I'll put up a link below that you can check out. I did a video all about dairy. It's a little bit too much information to talk about dairy in its entirety in this particular video, but the quality of dairy does matter. So again, if you're buying that grocery store dairy that's not organic, that has recombinant bovine growth hormone in it, that's made from genetically modified cows, that stuff is a surefire way to help land you with an increased movement toward diabetes. Now, the third trigger food group for diabetes is grain. It's one of the reasons I wrote No Grain, No Pain. And when I wrote No Grain, No Pain, I wasn't just talking about physical pain. I was talking about the pain of disease, the pain that people suffer when they have different chronic degenerative diseases. And diabetes is certainly a painful condition. It can lead to being overweight or obese. Diabetes itself contributes to heart disease. It contributes to eye loss. It contributes to kidney damage. Diabetes contributes to neuropathy. That's a lot of different kinds of pain. And grain is a major trigger factor, particularly wheat. Wheat is very high in a substance called amylopectin, which drives up blood sugar better than actual processed sugar does. So wheat is a particular note in the grain family to really drive the mechanism behind diabetes. But so too are other grains. Corn is another example of a grain that really drives the presence of diabetes into a person's life. So avoiding, again, processed sugar, avoiding dairy, and avoiding grain. Those three are the ones I recommend that you avoid. Now let's talk about what you can eat. What foods are good, that are healthy, that you can eat, that also help to prevent diabetes? So this answer depends, because there's an old adage, one man's food is another man's poison. So any food potentially could cause an elevation or a spike in blood sugar if it's the wrong food for you. But if we're generalizing here, okay, again, generalizing, most people do really well with dark green leafy vegetables. Those are great. There's a lot of vitamins and minerals in those foods. They're very low caloric. They're virtually no sugar, so they're not going to create a blood sugar spike. They're going to give you fiber in your diet. That fiber helps to feed your healthy bacteria. The healthy bacteria send messages to your immune system about regulating your overall health and regulating your weight. So dark green leafies, definitely a superfood as it relates to trying to prevent diabetes. Now, whether or not you're a vegetarian or whether or not you're a meat eater, I'm going to say meats themselves. The protein, many people are protein deficient. And so not getting adequate protein leads to muscle wasting, which leads to insulin sensitivity problems. Remember that you can alter the quantity of sugar in your diet to improve the way your body communicates with sugar and the way you produce insulin. But one of the ways that we maintain our relationship with healthy glucose is to have solid muscle mass. And one of the ways we keep solid muscle mass, aside from working out and exercising, which is important, is to make sure we get adequate protein when we do work out. Because if you're not getting adequate protein in your diet, what can happen is you can work out, you can damage your muscles don't heal and repair, and your muscles over time can atrophy. And that muscular atrophy leads to insulin resistance and contributes to diabetes. So again, making sure you're getting adequate protein in your diet, but more importantly, high biological value protein, which is predominantly found in animal products. So if you're a pure vegan, my advice to you would be go to your doctor at least once a year and have them check your plasma amino acid levels to ensure that you're getting all of the essential amino acids that come from protein in your diet to support your muscular strength and growth. Look, I know a lot of really strong vegans. So again, this is not me picking on people that want to follow a vegan diet. I'm just saying be smart about it and take the proper measurements. Now, if we're talking about other foods that we can consume to try to avoid diabetes, it's really not a particular food per se as much as it is a ratio of macronutrients. So if you're looking at your carbs, your fats, and your proteins, it's important to understand that a lot of people today, one of the reasons they have diabetes is because they have sugar toxic diets, or really carbohydrate toxic diets. They're just eating too many. It's not that what they're eating is bad for them. It's just that the quantity of how much they're eating is bad for them. So it helps sometimes to analyze the quantity of carb, fat, and protein ratio that you're consuming. I recommend that people start with something called the rule of thirds, which is get a third of your calories from carbs, a third from fat, a third from proteins. That represents good, solid balance in your macronutrient levels. It's a good place to start. And it gives you a balance where you're not over-consuming carbohydrates to the level that it's going to contribute to blood sugar breakdown and potentially diabetes. Okay, next part of this question was, what else can you do supplementally? So there are certain nutrients that are required to help you regulate your blood sugar that I think are very, very critical to understand whether or not you have enough of them. And one of them is chromium. Chromium's nickname is the glucose tolerance factor, GTF. What is chromium? What is its function? Chromium helps build the insulin receptors that sit on the surface of your cells. So for your insulin to be able to talk to your cells so that sugar can get from your blood into your cell to make energy, you need chromium. So chromium deficiency is notorious for contributing to blood sugar problems. Another vitamin that's notorious for creating blood sugar problems is vitamin B3, niacin. Niacin and chromium work together to make the insulin receptor. So those two work hand in hand to make sure your insulin receptors are functioning well. A third nutrient that I think is very, very critical to prevent diabetes is zinc. Understand that zinc holds insulin together. It's the centerpiece that holds insulin together and allows it to function and work. So if you're low in zinc, you're not going to be very efficient at producing insulin effectively, and you need insulin to clear your bloodstream of sugar. And then I'm going to add one more that I think is very, very important in this case, and that's magnesium. See, when you're breaking sugar down in your cells, there are about 16 different reactions that have to occur in that process. 8 of them require magnesium. Magnesium is so important to be able to metabolize sugar into energy. So if your magnesium levels are low, you're going to struggle with problems. Now, of those nutrients that I discussed, understand that many people have deficiencies in those nutrients because of the medications that they're taking. And the reason they're taking medications is because of the foods that they're eating. So the perfect kind of storm, if you will, is the average person who eats the 3 foods that cause diabetes, the sugar, the grain, and the dairy. Those foods can irritate the stomach as well, leading to heartburn symptoms. So now let's go a step further. The doctor prescribes an acid blocking medication in order to basically suppress the symptoms of heartburn. And now that acid blocking medication reduces your ability to absorb zinc, chromium, vitamin B3, and magnesium. So you can see the scenario there is the diet is where it all really begins, okay? So if your diet is dialed in, you won't have the need for the medicine. The medicine won't cause the nutrient deficiencies, and then you won't need to supplement with high doses of nutrients for the rest of your life to try to accommodate the damage the drug is doing. So diet comes first, okay, when it comes to relieving or reducing your risk for the development of diabetes. Thanks so much for sending your question in. I enjoyed answering it. And if you've got a question you'd like to ask me, make sure you contact us at glutenology@gmail.com so we can take care of you. And as always, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe below.